Welcome to Haunted Homebodies, where Halloween isn't just a day, it's a lifestyle. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Sarah, and we're your guides through the delightfully dark corners of comfort horror.
Grab your break room coffee and your blankets.
Let's get this party started. Today we are talking about Cabin in the Woods, which is a movie that we both share a great enthusiasm for, and we have talked about so many times.
So many times. It's fun because we went from one of your favorites to one of my favorites to now one of our favorites. Woo! All right. So we were in an off-grid cabin once.
It was a really fun experience, and I'm excited for us to talk about this on the pod today because I'm not sure that I shared with you in real life how terrified I was being there.
Are you serious?
Let's
I
tell
did not
our
know
listeners
that.
more about it. Let's set the scene for them.
Okay, so I had an emotional break. I'm just kidding. I decided to sell my home and go on a solo cross-country road trip. Just me, my anxious little self, and my anxious sir, that's not a word, even more anxious dog. And I was like, we're just going to drive around the country and we're going to find ourselves. We're going to have an adventure. It's going to be cool. And then I was like, oh, it seems like kind of a long time to be going around by myself. Like maybe someone else would want to join me. And so I kind of put it out there to my network. And of course, you were the only one who said, one, that you wanted to go, and two, like actually followed through with it. So we decided the period of the road trip that worked best for your schedule was the chunk where I would primarily be in Montana. And I had already booked all my Airbnbs with like varying degrees of thought. You know, some were just like, that looks cool, or that looks cool, or that'll be an experience. Well, that's a TP. Sure, I'll stay in that. And you happened to hook up with me during this part of the trip where I had booked an off-grid cabin. And it was like pretty truly off-grid, like nothing. Like we I don't remember if we had a cell signal, but no electricity at all, no running water, like just no modern day amenities.
It was an outhouse situation, a cute little outhouse, I think.
It was a pretty classy outhouse as far as those go, but an outhouse nonetheless.
Yeah. And it was a really cozy cabin. This was not the cabin from Cabin in the Woods.
No, it was not rustic. It was actually super nice. It just didn't have electricity.
Yes.
Which you don't think about, like how dark it's going to be.
Yeah.
It was so dark. Like it had a couple like wind up lights, and I think I had a Jackery, like one of those portable power sources. So we maybe had like one light going, but it was just like very dark and very quiet.
Yes, it was. I don't think like it wasn't miles away from anybody else, but it was far enough away that you certainly couldn't see or hear anyone else. But it was also one of those places where you could hear every little noise in the woods.
It's very true. I don't remember being scared. I guess because I had been alone on this trip for most of it, and had been in like more like populated places with electricity and lights and all of that. But I do remember when we got there, there was a kind of like welcome book there, and it was like, if you're here during this month and this month, be careful because there's a mountain lion that likes to sleep under the deck. We're like, okay, yeah, let's just keep that in mind.
There also, I don't know if you remember, I think we had checked into the cabin and then we were leaving because we were going to go into town and grab food or something. And there was another car coming up this long dirt road looking for, I think, another cabin. And they like stopped and asked us for directions. And I think that like the fact that somebody else knew we were up there really freaked me out. And now really ties into the Cabin in the Woods and like we'll talk about it, but kind of the harbinger that they meet along the way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I don't remember. I don't really remember that.
Oh, it was a real thing. It happened.
Well, I'm not doubting that it was a real thing. I just don't have like a recollection of that. Did you get like a bad vibe from them, or was it just more the fact that like there were people
Didn't
and
get
it
a
was weird.
I didn't get a bad vibe, but I definitely didn't get a like, oh, I'm totally comfortable with you vibe.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Huh. That's so funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, sorry.
Now you know. It was our last night. I was with you
Yeah.
for like 3 or 4 nights. It was our last night before I had to fly off back to
Right.
wherever
The
I was
real
living at the
world.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Why didn't you tell me that you were scared?
I think I wasn't really scared until after we went to sleep. So it was
Okay.
like a little too late after that point. I was like, just suck
Yeah.
it up, Sarah, fall asleep. It was okay. I'm okay.
Well, yeah. We made it through
We
without
survived.
anything scary happening from my perspective.
You stayed
But
another night there.
I did by myself.
Yeah, by
Yeah.
yourself.
I'm a little bit of a psycho.
I'm really impressed with you.
I think this is part of why I like horror so much is because I can also like almost all the time watch a scary movie and then it ends and then I move on with my life. And I know that
Right.
that's not the case for a lot of people.
It must be a nice talent to have, Ashley. Here I am running up my driveway after watching Blair Witch Project, not sleeping in a cabin in the woods in Montana.
You know, it's okay.
Yeah.
I would say you're more normal about this than me. I think you're the voice of the people here and I'm just like a weirdo.
I'm the audience stand-in, like some of the
Yeah.
characters that we'll talk about today. So I have a follow-up question for you from last week's episode. You were talking about how often you watch scary movies on Sunday mornings. Like it turns out it is a thing for you. And I need to know how. I tried to watch Cabin in the Woods during daylight hours. I had all the blinds closed and I still could not see the dark scenes on my TV well enough. How do you watch
Oh,
horror movies in the daytime?
interesting. I was not expecting this to be a question about logistics.
This is a technical
You're
question.
like literally how? Um, I guess it's just like in the two. So when I was telling you about that, that was primarily when I was living with Courtney, which we were in an apartment that had like very little natural light. We were living in a
Okay.
first floor apartment in the North End, so it was
Mm-hmm.
extremely dark. And now I guess it's just like where the TV is. There's just not glare.
Wow.
That's my very
Wow.
boring answer.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for indulging that very silly question as well. I appreciate that.
Oh, no problem. All right, so let me introduce the movie,
That
shall
sounds
I?
great.
All right, so
Yes.
we're talking about The Cabin in the Woods, which was released in the United States on April 13th, 2012. When I was planning this out, now I remember why I planned out this date. It's because we're approaching the 13th year anniversary of the release of this film,
Perfect.
because it is, in fact, April.
Is it? I don't know.
I'm like, where am I?
Hmm.
What's going on? So Google classifies this movie as a horror slash sci-fi. What do you
Hmm.
think?
I don't know if I buy the sci-fi aspect of it. I know there's a lab and scientists. I
Right.
don't think it's sci-fi.
It doesn't feel like a sci-fi movie to me at all, but I
Mm.
guess, where that classification comes from because it is not your typical horror movie. It certainly has elements that are not of this world
Yes.
to an extreme degree. But
Fair.
I would classify it similar to Scream. It's just like a meta horror comedy bonanza.
Bonanza.
It's a bonanza.
Bonanza fits the vibe of some of these scenes for sure. Yes.
Oh yeah. A complete bonanza but also bananas. So
Yes.
this movie was rated 7 out of 10 on IMDb, 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, and 74% of Google users liked this movie. Again, just like Scream, very popular. The Cabin in the Woods is currently streaming on Pluto TV and Amazon Prime. Do you remember the first time you watched this movie?
I don't have a super distinct memory. I know I didn't see it in theaters, and I am really confident that I did watch it at home at some point. This comment has aged poorly, but I was going through like a pretty serious Joss Whedon phase. I watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer for the first time uh, after college. Like I was an adult, if a 22-year-old counts as an adult. Um, and I loved it, and I just watched like everything Joss Whedon did. And Cabin in the Woods came out that same year, like right after I finished Buffy, and I loved it. And we can talk about Joss Whedon maybe some other time.
Mm.
But that is why I first saw it.
Mm. I don't think I am well versed in this, but he canceled?
Oh, big time canceled. Like
Yeah.
actually canceled and it stuck.
Oh,
Like a lot of really abusive and problematic behavior
yikes.
on sets going back years and years and years, and from someone who was this incredibly seemingly outspoken feminist, and the
Oh,
issues were almost entirely with women. And there was also one black man who came out to say that there was really abusive behavior on set. So it's pervasive across pretty much all of his projects.
yikes.
Yeah.
That's so
Hmm.
disappointing.
I know.
Another
So
one bites
I
the dust, man.
some of my absolute favorite shows and movies.
It just taints the experience.
It 100% does, especially because he's always such a creative force behind them. I always remind myself how many people really put their heart and soul into all the movies and TV
Right.
shows. Like it absolutely sucks what he did. And
Yeah,
also, so many people brought their creativity and their talents and their vision to what we watch. So I watch it for
totally.
them.
And The Cabin in the Woods is not canceled, I guess is what we're saying.
And I don't think so.
Ugh. Well, I'm trying to think. I believe I may have seen it in theaters. My memory's a little hazy. Like we were in college, right, when it came out. Were we?
This would have been right
2011,
after.
2012. Yeah, okay.
Or
So
no, 20. This came out in
April of
2012.
2012.
We
So
were
we
just
were
graduating.
just about to graduate. I
Yeah.
feel like I maybe saw it in theaters. Can't be sure, but I do remember just obviously when the kind of big or twist is revealed. Like now it doesn't seem as twisty. Have you noticed that? Like the twist isn't twisting. Like which obviously it's like the first time you see something, it's very shocking and then it loses its steam. But now I'm like, how did we not see like more of this coming? Or how I feel like I really didn't understand what was going on the first time I watched it. You're just along for this ride and you're like, this is fun and different, but I literally had no idea like what they were doing in the lab or what was going on or even the degree to which they were controlling the situation. And now I'm like, was I just not paying attention at all? Maybe. It's possible.
Yeah, I don't remember my first feelings about it. I also don't remember the trailer for it. Like, I
Mm,
don't remember
true.
if this was a Scream situation, like where they build Drew Barrymore as the star and she dies right away, or if this is like if they were honest about it in the trailer. I don't remember at all.
I don't remember either, but I know that after I saw it, it really stuck with me and it became that movie. You know, when you're like on like a date or something, or you're hanging out with someone, like a new friend, and you want to like kind of impress them and like pull a movie like out of your back pocket to be like, this is my movie choice. This would be the
Yeah.
one that I would put on. And
Oh,
yeah, to try to like be like, I'm a cool movie person.
what was your success rate on that? How'd that go?
Good. Yeah.
All
Successful.
right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna whiz right through this plot because I think we can all agree the point of this movie is not the plot. The plot is kind of satire in itself. This is meta. So, to kick us off, we have these 5 college students whose names, and I did have to Google this because I don't feel like they're referenced by name ever in the movie. We've got Dana, Kurt, Jules, Marty, and Holden, and they are all heading out on a weekend trip to a remote cabin that is owned by Kurt's cousin. They all pile into an RV which is the first confusing thing that happens in this movie. If anyone could at me and tell me why they drove an RV to go to a cabin that they were going to sleep in, this has haunted me since my last rewatch of this movie.
I could maybe help you out there. I don't know if it will satisfy you, but I think that's just a meta reference to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like
Okay,
a
I will accept that.
kind of a, they're not in a camper per se. I think they're in like a 70s like VW kind of van, but I think they were trying to replicate that feeling of like, friends kind of like hanging out in the back of the van, just like having a good time, and
Okay.
just to have more of that dynamic, maybe a more dynamic scene than if they were just sitting, I guess, in a car together.
All right. I appreciate that. I accept it. Logistically, in real life, it didn't make any sense. It was a very silly, not gas efficient vehicle to
Yeah, like
drive to
why do they
this.
even have access to an RV? Also, I have questions just about Kurt's cousin. Like, is he real? Like, what? Did they ever
Well,
explain that?
no, but Dana asks that at the end of the movie. We're gonna get
Mm.
ahead of ourselves here, but
Oh,
in like
okay.
the
Sorry.
very last
I
scene, no,
don't
I'm just gonna
remember
say it
that.
there. She turns to Marty in the very last scene and goes, "Does Kurt even have a cousin?"
Oh, yeah, I think I do remember that. So she doesn't answer
So
the question. She's more just
yeah,
like asking what we're all asking, like,
fair question.
how did we get here?
Yes, the RV was Kurt's dad, though. They did
Mm.
cover that. It was his dad's RV because there was an issue because Marty wanted to bring his seemingly travel coffee mug actual giant bong into the
Right.
RV. Kurt had a little problem with that because it was his dad's RV, but that was a great introduction to Marty as well.
Marnie's the best part of this movie. Again, I just the comedic relief. It gets me every time.
He's the comedic relief, and he also, I think, serves a really similar purpose to Randy from Scream, in that he is the one who, more than any of the other characters, kind of serves as an audience stand-in.
Yeah.
He like makes the meta references. He's telling them like what not to do because he kind of sees the writing on the wall. So he's not quite as meta as Randy, but I think kind of stands in the same place as him. All right, so the movie itself is set up in as a classic horror movie, both which is perfect. It's a great introduction for it as both satire and I think a little bit critique of horror movies. It's very on the nose. So they're going out to an isolated location. There's no cell reception. Now, on the way, on their little RV trip, they stop at this super creepy old gas station that is run by a very rude man. Um, he's supposed to be really creepy, but I think he's
Yeah.
just kind of mean.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, we get introduced meanwhile to this mysterious underground facility that's shown preparing for something. There's two technicians. Their names are Sitterson and Hadley. I also had to look that up. Who are monitoring the group, it turns out, and watching them on this journey. They're making these cryptic remarks about the ritual, but mostly they're just like going about their day jobs, being kind of goofy, treating this like it's like a classic office job. Um, and they make a reference or they explain that the gas station thing was something that the college kids had to go through because whatever's going to happen next has to be of their own free will. So this is kind of their warning. So I did want to stop for a quick question. Ashley, if you were in this scenario and you stopped at that gas station, would that have made you stop and turn back?
Hmm. I think yes, because I have watched this movie and I'm familiar with the Harbinger of Doom and what that means.
Mm.
If someone is being a harbinger, I'm going to harbinge. I'm going to listen to what
Do
that
you
man has to
harbinge
say.
or does he harbinge?
He's the harbinger, so he harbinges me. I don't know. I don't know. Someone's getting
Amazing.
harbinged, and like I'm going.
Harbinging is happening.
I don't know. I might. I feel like I say that now, but if this scenario did happen, I think he was rude, and he does say stuff about like, like getting back. Now that's your concern, and kind of like spits at him. He's like you say, he's very rude, but he isn't saying like that place is haunted or there's a killer out there. If he said that, then I think I would be like, I don't know, but also like, are you reliable? you seem you seem a little iffy. So I might go, but I think once I went into the cabin, then I would be like, I'm not staying the night here. This
Well,
is a no
that's
for
maybe why
me.
they brought the RV. They could stay in the RV.
Like, yeah,
Anyway,
that's
anyway,
true.
that's exactly why I ask. I feel like the Harbinger is not scary enough, or like does it? I don't think he harbinges
No,
very successfully. He just gives weird vibes, and that's
they
it.
seem Hadley and Sitterson. You said their names. I know it's Hadley and
Apparently,
something. Yeah, they seem very satisfied by his reaction,
yeah.
which is literally my favorite scene of the entire movie when Morty calls in.
Short from Mordecai.
Oh,
Important detail here. It's so good. It's the name of the episode. So he calls in the Harbinger, Mordecai, Morty, and Sitterson and Hadley have him on speakerphone, and he is saying this like ridiculous, like end of the world type speech, and it's so creepy. And then am I on speakerphone? It's just the
I
goofiest.
it's the fun. He's like, the lambs have come to the killing floor. They will once again be. And then he's like, am I on speakerphone? It gets me every time. Every single time I watch it, I chuckle at that part because it is comedic gold. And then, they kind of like are like, oh, yeah, so sorry about that. And he's like, that's rude. I don't know who could be in the room. And then he gets back right back into it. And one thing that I read online in my, vast research that I I get into for every episode is that he warns them, Sitterson and Hadley, kind of that the quote unquote fool, Marty, is maybe something's going on with him. He says something
Oh.
um like the fool's insolence almost derailed the entire operation, blah blah blah. And then he's like, I'm still on speakerphone, aren't I? And then they
Well,
all start
that's
cracking up.
That's so interesting because it's made clear as the audience that we're not supposed to be paying real attention to what he's saying
Right.
because the technicians are goofing off the whole time.
Oh
Like
yeah.
they don't care. Oh, I
No,
love
they're like,
that.
you did your job, you checked all the boxes, we're good to go. Love you,
Yes.
Morty.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and it happens again. Well, it doesn't happen again. They just keep going. And Bradley Whitford is just being a big goof. He is a big goof throughout the whole movie. And this brings me to my second question, Ashley. Is it weird that I had and still to this day have a massive crush on Bradley Whitford?
Like in this movie or in general?
In everything, in
In
all
every movie.
things.
What? Oh, The West Wing is probably.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
he like more swoon-worthy in that?
Um, so interestingly, if I managed to take a step back, I would say no. Like he's just a recognized, not necessarily conventionally attractive, and it's very 90s. His
Yeah.
style is very 90s, which is not attractive. But I think it is insinuated in the show that he's swoon worthy. And it's just an attitude thing for me.
Yeah.
He often plays that kind of like goofy, confident character, and I love him.
His confidence and his sense of humor, I would say, are
Yeah.
attractive. But did I have any moments where I was crushing on him? No. But I would like to hear from other people. Maybe we'll have that be a story poll on our Instagram or something if people think
Oh,
he's swoon worthy.
I like it. My West Wing friends, I have a feeling will have strong opinions on this in either direction.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
curious. I'm curious to see whose side everyone's on.
yeah. And before you vote, I will remind you, he's got some great dimples. Bradley's got some great dimples.
Did you point at your own dimples when
I
you said
did.
that? Cute.
So it turns out, as we're spending more time with the technicians, that this whole cabin is rigged with hidden cameras, not only the cabin, but like the outside area as well. Um, and the facility is actively not only monitoring these kids, but also manipulating the environment. They're like releasing pheromones, and they put something in the now blonde girl's hair dye, all to affect their behavior in certain ways that really actually lean into the different tropes, character tropes that they're representing, or stereotypes here, and just really like nudging them further into that. And so it's identified kind of the roles they play. So we've got the athlete, the scholar, the fool, the whore, and the virgin. And they, in a very strange game of truth or dare, head down into the cabin's basement where they discover a bunch of really strange objects. Of the objects in the basement, Ashley, which would you have been most drawn to? And then now knowing that these each correspond to a monster that would have appeared in the film, do you know what that object corresponds to, or do you have a guess what the corresponding monster would have been to that object?
Yeah, so for this episode, as you know, I prepared a monster championship bracket that I've been very passionate about. So
Amazing.
I learned all about the monsters that were part of this film. But in regards to your question, even though I've seen kind of like the different monsters and the different objects, and we're keyed into the objects that they're actually the characters are actually picking up, there is one that I remember seeing in the basement where I'm like, oh, like why isn't anyone going over to that? And it's like this fortune telling machine,
Ooh.
which I was like, I don't know who would come out of that for the monsters, because we see the monster board. We're introduced to some of them later. Spoiler alert. um, but I looked it up, and I know that the fortune teller, I know who would come out, and I'm sorry for this, but it's the clowns.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Oh
I'm
no.
also
Ashley,
sorry for myself.
you would have brought the clowns on us?
Yes, the
That's
clowns would have
awful.
descended if
Mm-mm.
I was first. But what about you? What would you have picked?
I very likely would have ended up with the diary that I'll talk about in a second.
Oh,
I feel
yeah.
like that would have been like, oh, what's happening here? Oh, look, there's probably answers right there. It's the same, I got to Google
Mm.
everything. Same thing.
Mm-hmm. You're like, let's look to
Um,
the literature.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I would have been at the
Uh,
fortune telling machine being like, beep, boop, bloop.
it would have been the diary too. Research would have been research.
Yeah, I think we would have got
Yeah.
clowned for sure.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That, or I don't even know what it was, but that like round, almost egg-shaped object that they were like spinning around, and it was like kind of clicking into place, that
Yeah,
we find out later belongs to what I believe is called the Hell Lord. I,
yeah,
I feel like I would have liked that just because it's like a little fidget toy. I would have
yeah.
needed that in that moment.
Oh, so they call him Hell Lord, but his sorry. I feel like I was moving on to my own thought. I did not fully appreciate that you just said you would have used it as a fidget toy because you would have been nervous. That's so funny. Anyway, the Hell Lord, his name is something like Fornicus, the god of pain and torture, or something awful.
Or in a kiss.
Yeah.
Wow.
The insinuation there is accurate. Is that
Okay.
he's based off of Hellraiser, Pinhead.
Ah, got it. Okay.
And the whole basement thing is like a big Evil Dead reference. The
Oh,
door
yeah.
flapping up. Like there's a lot of Evil Dead. The book, I forget what it's called. I'm not a huge Evil Dead fan. Sorry for the people that are really passionate about that movie. Um, it's just not for me. But this movie is like oozing with Evil Dead references, so I feel like there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Mhm, mhm.
All right. Well, we would have been truly screwed had
Sorry
we been
about
in
the
that basement.
clowns. That we
You
would not. You would
notice,
have died of fright, just like when the clowns were sent up from
you
the
know,
basement,
that's
and then
true.
I would
Maybe
have just
it would have
been
been quick
sliced
for
up.
me. I like that neither of us, even knowing what happens, neither of us said, oh, nothing. We wouldn't have touched anything down there because that's so dumb.
Okay, well, here's a question for you. If that door opened, would you have gone down there?
Okay, if I was 22 years old again
Drunk.
and
Maybe a little high.
drunk, probably had
Not that we ever did
some
drugs.
pheromones
Sure.
up in the air, and also trying to impress a really cute boy that had been invited on the trip, like kind of
True.
specifically for me, like maybe.
Yeah, I'd probably be down in the basement,
Yeah.
especially if the whole group goes down there. I'm just gonna be like sitting
Yeah.
upstairs.
Yeah. I mean, Dana was dared to go down there first, and that's a tough situation. It was a dare.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm.
Yep.
I also
So
like how
I
neither of us were like we would have survived. We were both like, I don't know, 10 minutes max.
I have a great friend who Zach, who has often talked about like if the apocalypse comes, he does not want to survive. He
Mm.
just said, just take me out at the beginning. And as I was watching this movie, I was thinking about Zach, like, would I want to live through that? I think I'd be good to be the first one out.
That's
Sounds
true.
fine to me.
Yeah, Courtney, my sister, is the same way. She's like, I don't want to be a part of like in the scary movie. She's just like, how are they doing this? Like, how are they continuing to go? Like the final girl,
Yeah.
she's like, I could never.
I don't want to. I
Yeah.
do not want to.
Yeah. All
All
right. So
right.
where are we? So
So,
Dana's reading the
yeah.
Latin, right?
Yeah, so we would have made the same bad decisions.
Right.
They were all
Yeah.
up in all of the many objects. Important to note that Chris Hemsworth's character, which we haven't really said that yet, but Chris Hemsworth was in this movie.
Yeah. Talk about
Um,
swoon.
I know. He played Kurt, the athlete. It was before he was a big deal. They filmed this movie several years before it was released, and so Avengers had come out, and he was Thor, but he had filmed this movie before he was chosen as Thor. So it was
Oh, I
like
didn't know
this
that.
perfect moment in pop culture timing.
I love
Yeah,
when that happens.
I know. I know. All right, so yeah, Dana's reading some Latin from an old diary, even though Marty and every person in the audience is screaming not to do that because hello, you don't read the Latin. And that triggers the appearance of a family of undead murderer torturers. We find out from Bradley Whitford and co. that they are called the Buckners, also known as the zombie redneck torture family, distinct from other zombies that they could have summoned to the house.
Right. And we know that because of the board that they've created, and they've all
Yes.
been wagering on who they will select in the basement, right?
Nobody's taking all of these deaths seriously, and we don't really
No.
understand why yet. They haven't really explained to us why, except that it's important. So the Buckners, obviously, they're fulfilling their purpose. They begin attacking the group. Jules, who is the stand-in here for the whore, although I do not think that is a fair word to call her or any other woman as, but she is the first to be killed, and it is brutal.
Oh,
Like
it's
that is so
awful.
hard to watch.
It's disgusting. And
Yeah.
yeah. And one thing about all of these tropes that's kind of funny about this movie, and like you said, is a little bit of like a critique of the genre, is none of them actually fit the trope
Yes.
itself. And they kind of address that where they're just like it doesn't really matter. Like the
Yeah.
beginning of the movie is Dana, who's supposed to be the virgin, talking about an affair that she had
Hmm.
with a professor. It's like, and then Kurt, who's supposed to be kind of like the dumb jock trope, he's like showing her like economics textbooks. Marty the fool is the one who like the entire time is like, what are we doing? Like, let's stop. It's like none of them actually fit these stereotypes, Jules included. But
Hmm.
yeah, they pump her full of pheromones and set the mood in the forest where they're like, dimming the lights and everything because part of what, the process in the lab, it's not just apparently to kill them, but it's also to put on a good show, which,
Yeah.
we don't, like you said, we don't know exactly why at this point.
Yeah, and the zombie redneck torture family is really earning that torture nickname.
Ugh,
And how they and how
grotesque.
they go after people at first. They kind of back off that and then
So
come
when
back
I
to it.
first saw this movie, I remember being so disappointed that it was the Buckners because I was scared. Like, this movie scared me, when it wasn't making me laugh. And
Yeah.
I was like, not the zombie redneck torture family. I was like, this is gonna be gross. And I just was like, I don't want to see, like, they're like yucky. I don't know who I would have wanted to come out if I could have chosen, but I was like, ah.
Did you want the merman just like Bradley did?
Can you imagine the movie if it was just this one merman just like flopping around?
So it's a memorable scene. It
Yeah,
is.
the pond scene at the beginning would have just been over, right? He would have like pulled them
Yeah,
all under and then I
I
don't know.
guess. All right, so as the deaths happen, this whole underground facility, they're all celebrating. They think that everything is going as planned. Our boy Marty, who is quite high, does begin to suspect that something is very wrong. He finds a camera, and he's like starting to put some of the pieces together. But then he gets attacked, and we're led to believe Marty is no more. Um, Very sad, very sad.
Yeah.
So then we've just got Kurt, Dana, and Holden left. They try to take the RV to drive away. The tunnel explodes, although we find out it was supposed to have exploded earlier because it's something the facility is doing. And then I just have a lot of thoughts on this scene. So they like look over this chasm from the road they're on to another road where they can escape. And there's like no way. They're like, do we have rope? We don't have rope. And then all of a sudden, Kurt's like, I know what to do. And he has brought this dirt bike, this single dirt bike on the back of the RV out here. So I guess he was just going to go do some dirt biking on his own when out with his friends. And he plans to jump across this chasm on the dirt bike, and then he'll go get help and come back for Dana and Holden. And they set it up, and there's this big dramatic scene, and he does this big dirt bike jump. Even though, like, I don't think he really had a ramp up. I don't know.
No.
Anyway, he does a big jump, and then he hits this wall, and you can see it's like that movie, like technical screen that he's hit that tells you that something's off. It's like this weird electric wall that he hits, and then he hits it and drops forever and ever and ever and ever. And goodbye,
Yeah.
Kurt.
Which I'm guessing is like why that scene existed was just to demonstrate the wall or to demonstrate to the other characters like, oh, there is no way out. Like it was kind of like a like,
Mm.
well, what do we do now? There's nowhere to go. But I wasn't sure like how self-aware this scene is because it's pretty cheesy, but it's
Yeah.
not funny, really.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
most of the other parts of the movie would have been like something quippy or funny about it, but it just kind of like weird and then yeah, he just falls and dies and you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay."
Well, and the next death is kind of similar.
Yeah.
So, not except not the funny part at this point, I don't think. But like then Dana and Holden are like, "Oh, okay, like we have to go back," and I forget what their plan was, but they were going to
They're
go
making a
back.
plan though.
Yeah, they
Holden
have a
is like giving
plan.
her a pep talk
Yeah. Yeah. But then like there was apparently a zombie in the RV, and he just like very unceremoniously gets stabbed by a
through the
zombie
neck.
through
Yeah.
the neck. And that's the end of Holden. If Holden was, I feel like Holden was not given enough in this movie. He has like the
No.
least personality. You were able to just go through every character and say why they weren't their stereotype,
Yeah.
except Holden,
Yeah.
who's supposed to be the scholar, and I don't think was shown to be the scholar or to not be the scholar in any way.
I agree. He was a total kill off character. And I do actually
Yeah,
appreciate how jarring that scene was. Like, it definitely shocked me the first time I saw it.
yeah,
And I like the way they juxtaposed it with him giving her a pep talk and
yeah,
then all of a sudden the rug being like ripped out from underneath her and being like, you are truly alone now. Like, that was very
yes.
harsh and well done. But yeah, it was not an upsetting death at all. Like, Jules, a
No,
little bit. Marty, definitely. Kurt, I was sad. And then Holden, you're
hmm
just like, whoa. Anyway,
yeah. Yeah,
good luck,
and then
Dana.
he's gone. And then we never see him or his body again because he was driving the RV, and once he got stabbed, the RV ended up in the lake. The Dana crawls out of the lake, and the underground staff start celebrating like hardcore now because apparently the virgin's death is optional as long as she suffers, which is
Oh, okay,
awful.
which is awful, but just to change the mood, bring it back up here. The scene where Hadley is reflecting and kind of sharing that, and then he's like, I'm almost like I'm rooting for her. She's just got so much fight. And then he turns and he's like, tequila!
Yeah.
Tequila is my lady! Because someone has like come in from another department.
And you're
His,
telling me you don't have a crush on Bradley Whitford
uh,
after that scene, Ashley?
him and Sitterson, like we talk about how the characters in the cabin who you'd expect to be the main characters, they're all, including Dana, like later in the movie we get more from her, but none of them are really fleshed out at all, which is typical of a
No.
horror movie,
Yeah.
right? We're not getting these
Hmm.
like well-rounded characters with a backstory usually in like a typical movie. But Sitterson and Hadley are such good characters and such a good duo. They're so funny.
Yes. Yes. They're what I remember about the movie. Like when I haven't watched it in a while, I remember them. You're right. The rest of the characters are
Totally.
not
If
that
you took
memorable.
if you took them out of the movie, if you cut all of the scenes with them and just cut that out and you kind of had this like mystery, oh, there's something else going on, the movie would just be like, eh. It would like have kind of a cool ending, but it would be like, oh, this is fine.
Yeah.
Really
And
boring for the first three quarters, but they make it so entertaining.
they do. I love them. I think you have a crush on Bradley too. I'm just saying. Okay, so there is one of those scenes that is so memorable is the underground staff is celebrating, like partying. There's music, there's drinks, everybody's hugging. There's all sorts of weird little office party interactions happening, which is also kind of fun. And in the background on a big screen is Dana just being tortured by a member of the Buckner family. It
Papa
is
Buckner.
gruesome.
Awful.
Yes, yes. But then it turns out Marty isn't dead. He gives Papa Buckner a real good whack with his travel coffee mug bong.
Right.
Loved that he brought that back. Um, Brings her into a grave, which turns out to be this little underground bunker with a hidden elevator, which they take down, and then they find themselves in the heart of the underground facility. And this is where we get introduced to the monster cubes. We see this warehouse full of monsters locked in glass cubes, and Dana figures out that each one is connected to one of the items in the basement. So she figures out it's from the Hell Lord Fornicus, because she sees his little fidget toy. Um, she figures out the facility chooses the monster based on what the group activated. So Dana and Marty release all of the monsters in the facility at once.
I think she says, let's get this party started, and hits the master purge button, and literally all hell breaks loose.
I love it. It's just absolute chaos and destruction. And this is when the movie it's a flood of references to
Yes.
horror movies and their villains and different tropes. It's so much fun to watch.
It's so fun. And aside from the monsters, they even do other horror movie references, like I mentioned with the Evil Dead, with like the trap door swinging open. And then there is a really gruesome part in the movie where the second wave of military security guys comes in, and the elevator with the two elevator shafts on either side is just covered like three-dimensionally in blood. And I think that was a reference to The Shining, that
Oh yeah.
iconic Shining scene.
Well, there are
Uh,
creepy twins at some point, I think,
yes,
also.
there
Yeah.
are. There are creepy
Yeah.
twins. There's just, like you said, so many. But also, I remember the first time watching this movie, the scene is shocking and jarring. And now watching it, it's a lot of fun, but it's also like extremely gruesome and messed up. Like there is a lot going on. Like on the security cameras, you're just seeing all of these workers being like tortured, mutilated, like zombies vomiting green goo into their mouth. Like it is horrific.
It is super gory. Uh, but I think the movie has done a pretty good job to this point of making us not feel that bad for these people.
It's
They were
true. It's
right.
true.
They
It's
were
it's a
all
very
celebrating.
it's a weird thing because on the one hand, I'm almost attached more to Sitterson and Hadley than I am like
Yeah.
rooting for Dana and Marty, but I am rooting for them at the same time. And then there's also this sense of, if we want to get really deep here, which, bear with me for a minute, there's this sense of like compliance and duty and that kind of aspect. Like, I
Hmm.
could see a lot of people going to this place and being like, I was just doing my job. And when you think about the reveal at the end of like, what is their job to do?
It's a big one.
It's a big ethical question where it's like, okay, well, do you want them to do their job or not?
Well, let's talk
Yeah,
about
let's
that. Let's
get
talk
there.
about that purpose. So, Dana and Marty make it out of all of this chaos and destruction, and they meet the director of the facility, whose voice we have heard earlier in the movie, and who is played by Sigourney Weaver. It's so great. I love this little cameo. And Sigourney explains the stakes. If the ritual fails and the gods aren't satisfied, the whole world is going to end. Um, so they find out that this whole facility exists for this point. The gods are referred to as the old ones, and these archetypes that we've been talking about that each of these people references, they have to be sacrificed in a kind of specific order. The whore has to be first, the virgin, if at all, has to be last. So Sigourney explains this, and they've got like 8 minutes till sunrise. It has to happen before sunrise. And Dana kind of turns on Marty. She's got this choice. She can kill Marty, because remember, Marty has to die first to complete the ritual, or let all of humanity be destroyed. So she's got her shaky arm up with the gun. She looks like she's gonna do it. And then a werewolf comes and gets her from behind. And that's it. They have not at the sunrise deadline. The ritual is complete. Dana and Marty have a little moment there where she's like, I don't think I was gonna do it. And Marty's like, sorry, I didn't tell you about the werewolf. And then they say, did Kurt even have a cousin?
Right.
And the ritual is completed. And the movie does not leave anything up to interpretation. It is not an ending where they're like, does the world actually end? It ends with a giant hand bursting out of the earth. Like, the old ones have arisen. The world as we know it is over. And that's it. That is the end of the movie. So how do you feel about this? This is so interesting and so different from so many horror movies. Like, nobody gets away.
Oh, yes, I have thoughts. So to roll it back just a little bit, the moment where Dana is holding the gun on Marty
Hmm.
and she's looking like maybe she's going to do it, and Marty has the opportunity, like Marty basically chooses to not let this happen in a way
Yeah.
because he
Uh-huh.
sees the werewolf coming, and there was time where she could have turned around and shot the werewolf instead of
Yeah.
him, and he chooses to let the werewolf get her, essentially saving
Yeah.
his own life, knowing like, he also could have just like, if he wanted to save the world and humanity, in theory could have sacrificed himself by just falling off the
Oh,
like
totally.
the volcanic cavern that Sigourney
Yeah.
goes into. So I think that is interesting. And from what I've read on, getting deeper into this movie and the meanings that they're trying to get across, basically is a discussion of like, is humanity worthy? And that's why we're gonna going
Oh.
back and forth between Sitterson and Hadley and talking about like their morality and their ethics, and then
Hmm.
the individuals and the sacrifice, and is one life worth more? For some reason, I just thought of that part of Avengers. I think it's an Endgame where they're trying to save Vision the like robot, but he has a soul, okay? It's established. And Captain America says something like we don't trade lives or something. So they're basically
Mm,
going to let the whole world go up in flames instead of just being like give up this one person,
yeah.
which I don't know, I kind of feel like is right.
You're saying that you share morals with Captain America.
Yeah, I guess I
Yeah.
do. I do.
So I mean, I think that the movie makes that argument very much. Like the ends do not justify the means. We do not trade lives. It's really not subtle in saying no, that is not okay. And I was reading that Joss Whedon and the co-creator, the guy who wrote the script with Drew Goddard, they fought for that ending. They basically said they
Mm,
were not going to make it unless they got to have that ending. So that meaning was
interesting.
really important to them.
It is a weird ending because like we're supposed to leave the movies feeling satisfied. That is what they're
Hmm.
designed to do, is to take us on this journey of some kind of transformation, and then like a satisfying ending that establishes that transformation. In this case, the transformation is humanity is not worthy
Yeah.
and the world must end um, in order to not, sacrifice these individuals. And I don't know. I guess like psychologically on like an emotional level, I remember like the movie ending and being like, okay, like it definitely doesn't give you that instant satisfaction, but it leaves you thinking about things, and not in a like
Yes.
horrible way. Like it wasn't leaving me like in this bleak like ugh, like this is just like a terrible place to be. It kind of just makes you go, huh,
Yeah,
that
it
was
makes you go,
different.
huh? And it makes you go, or like you might agree with
Hmm.
it. I think if they didn't get away, if they killed them, I think you'd have to think about like, okay, like was that the right thing?
I think the only reason why um I don't fully agree with like the way that it went down is because like personally, I feel like if I knew that the world was going to end, I think I would have jumped in the lava to save the world.
I think so. I think so too. But you remember, it's not just the sacrifice. It's not just the individual dying. There's the showmanship to it. There's the torture aspect to
Yeah,
it. And Marty, like you said, is really the one who made the decision. He's like, I don't think it's just about the fact that it's people dying. Like it's the whole thing is
true.
pretty messed up.
Which they do address to a degree at some point. Like Hadley says something like, "Remember when you could just throw a girl in a pit of
Hmm.
lava or something?" So it's establishing that the gods are getting hungrier and hungrier for more of a show and more of a sacrifice. So that's going to continue
Yeah.
to escalate, and there's going to need to be more violence and more death. And yeah,
Hmm.
maybe Marty, the quote unquote fool, has this wise moment and is just like, I don't think humanity's worth it. And then they have some line that's like, let's give someone else a chance or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm okay with it. I think it's good. I think it's interesting.
It's one of our absolute favorite movies. You and I love this movie. We talk about it. It is a fun ride, start to finish, that also somehow makes you think.
Generally, yeah, I think if you see it for what it is, and you can take it seriously or you can just be like it was a fun ride. Either way, I think it's
If
great.
nothing else, young Chris Hemsworth and who cares what age, Bradley Whitford.
Like this is like bringing me back to a previous uh, previous shoot a previous episode where I revealed my enormous crush on Faramir.
Yeah.
We,
Now
to
you
each
all
their
know this
own.
important thing about me. Yeah.
Ah, and me. Anyone who missed it, you now know.
Yes. We'll
All
talk.
right. So we're going to talk about our Army of Nightmares bracket. I am so excited. I don't really know exactly how I came up with this idea. I think I may have seen like a this monster versus this, and then I was like, oh my gosh, we should do it like a whole bracket. I think the train of thought ventured from the maybe seeing the this monster versus this to also my sister talking about how she recently did a bracket for The Bachelor.
Oh, fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and was saying how that made it more engaging, and I don't know, somehow my strange little brain was like, we should do a bracket for this and decide like who we think like the winning nightmare of all nightmares would be.
Yes.
Asking for some audience participation, and then in a future episode, anyone who participates, we will reveal the winners. But for now, we are going to reveal to each other who we picked as the winner of the Army of Nightmares bracket. Oh, you picked the dolls.
I did.
I love it. So tell me why you think these dolls are so deadly.
Their movements were some of the creepiest parts of the movie for me. Like whenever you see them, there's just absolute chaos going on. There's really some of it's really hysterical. Everything's kind of funny and chaotic, and the dolls are so creepy and slow and intentional in what they do. And it just felt to me like anybody that they would be up against, they would outwit them. They felt to me like utter despair. Like if you came up against the dolls, you had no hope. They would be able to outmatch whatever came their way. They were truly the scariest thing that I saw.
I totally think they were super creepy. I read somewhere that they were based on The Strangers, similar
That makes
masks to
sense.
that, and there were a lot of them. I don't remember how many, but maybe five or so. So I think
Hmm.
originally I obviously gave this a lot of thought. I think originally I had them going pretty far just because they could like outnumber kind of um, whoever they were up against. But at the same time, there is this confusing aspect to kind of this whole process of like this mystical element. And to me, they seemed just human, right? So they're just these human people with weapons and like a really creepy attitude and look, but humans at the end of the day.
It must be nice to be able to rationalize yourself out of utter fear of them. I find them terrifying.
I made you redo this bracket because I really wanted the jack-o'-lantern in there. Since we are a Halloween year-round podcast, I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. First, I forgot about the scarecrow folks because they don't come in until like the very end.
Mm-hmm.
And so I forgot about them because they are very like fall haunted. And then I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, there was a jack-o'-lantern on the board. And we really don't see him much in the movie.
No.
But how fun. There I saw some behind the scenes of like how they had, this flaming pumpkin head. They just had like a guy like holding up a pumpkin with like
Uh-huh.
flames like underneath it. To be like the stand-in shots of the jack-o'-lantern. And I think that's why I had them beat out I had him beat out the dolls. I went back and forth on it. But
Oh,
I
well,
was like,
let's share yours.
he's gotta be a little bit he's got some magic to him, you know? I don't know what he's
Yeah.
capable of. He has fire in his head.
That seems fair. Like, absolutely, I understand what you're saying. Let's see what your picks were outside
So
of that.
interestingly, you eliminated the Hell Lord in the first round. I find the Hell Lord, I feel the way about the Hell Lord the way that you feel about the dolls. Like that scene where she is just staring at him and the way he's looking back at her, he has literal like saw blades like in his head. And I think also just connecting the dots, like knowing that he is the stand-in for Pinhead from Hellraiser and that he is just like uh sexual torturer deviant, and then the scene of like him and he has minions and they're like tying someone up in chains to be tortured. Like
Fair.
if anyone were to come out of that graveyard and into the cabin, I think he would be at the bottom of my list, like in terms of sheer terror and like this is going to be a really long and arduous process. Like the unicorn. So say the unicorn comes out and we're just like gored a couple times and then it's like over and we move on.
Yeah. No,
No
that
big
is
deal.
fair.
I'm also a little surprised that you didn't have like the clowns going all the way. Because one, you're
What?
terrified of clowns, and two, there was a scene where they're shooting the clown repeatedly and the clown did not die.
Okay. two counterpoints for you here. One is that the task was described to me as them going up against each other
Hmm.
and not necessarily what I find most terrifying, even though that's what I ended up picking. Point two, I just had to give Bradley the one. He
Mm.
loves the merman so much, and I just had to give the merman a win.
Wow,
That's
you really
that's
do
truly what
love him.
happened.
Okay,
Yes.
so you did it correct with who would win in a fight, but then you were also like, I have a crush on this man. I want to choose the merman. The merman seemed like if the merman flopped his way into the cabin, I would just like walk away, and then we'd be like done. We would
I
get
think so. As
away.
long as she didn't get in the lake, it'd be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like maybe
Yeah.
one of us would have been picked off in the lake and then it just would have been like the longest process ever of like them having to like literally incapacitate us to the point of like passing out in the home so that the merman could catch up with us because he was like the size of a walrus.
I guess so.
Yeah, I don't really see the merman as a killing machine. The giant snake, I was like, he's gonna go far.
That seems really fair. I feel like the dragon bat though can
Yeah.
fly.
Right. I went back and forth on the dragon bat and the snake
Yeah.
because the bat was like not that big in comparison to the snake.
Yeah.
I picked the big snake. I'm also just really scared of snakes. It was a really big snake though.
It was. I like that we both agreed that the zombie redneck torture family wasn't going far though. Like the biggest of them literally got taken out by a bong.
Yeah.
So,
True, true.
yeah.
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 They were creepy, but
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And then I also just want to call a little attention to Kevin because
Kevin.
this was not something that I noticed on the board for a long time that there was just the name Kevin.
Kevin.
And so I had to look into this and I was like, who is Kevin? We're really not totally sure. I think they talk about him once, maybe just saying that he's basically saying he's like a serial killer. Like, I don't remember the
Okay.
exact line, but he's just the
Yeah.
man who kills people.
Yeah.
Kevin.
Kevin. Although there's witches in this,
Like
aliens,
legit witches. The doctors were really messed up.
yeah.
How did you feel about the character of Truman and his demise via the scarecrow folk at the end? Oh, also, maybe you didn't know that his name was Truman because he was a
I
very
did
minor
not.
character. And I only remember that his name is Truman because I read something about it maybe being a reference to the Truman Show of like people filming you and you don't know
Oh.
you're being filmed. But Truman was the uncomfortable security guard who was with Hadley and Sitterson and was like not having a fun time like they are.
Got
Like
it.
he's like the moral compass who's like, I don't think that we should like he's there, so
Yeah.
he made that
Oh,
choice. But he's
he is
definitely
a
not as callous as the rest of them. He's not like having a fun time. He's like, this is messed
no.
up.
He's there to remind us that this is not actually okay. And he
Yeah.
is not spared. I mean, he
No.
is stabbed so many times. So I don't think we actually see him die. He's still alive, just being stabbed the last time we see
Oh,
him.
he dies because he releases a grenade.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Yeah.
Which is like a choice.
Yeah.
I guess he just wanted it to be over, or like maybe just wanted
That's
to
fair.
defeat the scarecrow uh, menaces. But yeah, they were
Yeah.
creepy. They were creepy
Yeah.
little scarecrow folk.
They were. Well, the bracket was so much fun, and I can't wait to see the opinions of some of our listeners on this one.
Okay, that's it for today's comfort horror recap. Sweet dreams, homebodies.
And now, time for your bedtime story.
This is submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society. I call this story The Legend of the North Pond Hermit. They call him the Mountain Man, the Hermit. Sometimes, when they're trying not to scare the kids, the Hungry Man. You're not sure that that's any less creepy. He's probably not real. At least, that's what you tell yourself. But as you drive up to the small cabin on the edge of the pond, you can't help but feel like someone is watching you. You kick yourself for deciding to arrive in the middle of the night. Coffee by the pond while the sun rises doesn't seem quite as charming now as you try not to peer into the dark woods. You open the car door and pause, listening. The tree frogs are calling. Maybe a crunch in the leaves? You can't be sure. Probably just a squirrel. You walk up to the front door, glancing over your shoulder as you go. It's just a scary story you tell yourself. He's probably not even real. You unlock the front door to your cabin and step inside. You pause, remembering that the lamp for the living room is on the opposite corner of the room. For another moment, you will remain in darkness. You smooth your palm over the shelf by the door where you keep the emergency flashlight. Your palm is damp, now covered with flecks of dust, but no flashlight. You decide to head straight to the kitchen and pry the fridge door open, knowing that it will give you a small break from the darkness. Then you notice something. The fridge is empty. The box of leftover pizza you forgot to throw out last weekend is gone. Or maybe you didn't forget? You must have thrown it away. You pull open the drawer by the sink to grab your flashlight, but this drawer is empty too. Did you have the right drawer? You fumble your hand along the wall for a light switch, and then you hear it. A creak of a floorboard coming from the living room. And then another creak. "Who's there?" you stammer, and immediately regret it. You've seen enough scary movies to know better than to say that. Were you about to be in a scary movie of your own? You try to slow your breathing, but all you can hear is the sound of your heart pounding in your eardrums. You take a cautious step towards the living room, unable to stand the suspense any longer. Your eyes catch the outline of a floor lamp across the room. In one sudden lunge, you grab the pull string and the light flickers on just as you see the screen door slap closed. You don't dare to peer out into the dark forest to try to identify the intruder, but slam the door shut, bolt locked, your body pressed against the door. And there you remain until the sun finally comes up, and even a few moments more. All right, so let me tell you about this story. I was inspired to write this piece of flash fiction, that is hard to say, after learning about the legend of the North Woods Hermit, which turned out to not actually be a legend at all. The following is information I gathered from a book that is called A Stranger in the Woods by Michael Finkel. I brought my book with me. Kind of funny. I was trying to come up with a story that had to do with like being in the woods and being creepy. And then I think I remember Googling, like, were there any urban legends that were actually real? And I came across a story that happened to take place in Maine and be about the woods. And then I was like, oh, there's a book written about it. And then I was like, I own that book. I had randomly picked it up at a library sale. I don't know, just like the cover caught my eye, something weird. And I was like, okay, so I pulled the book out. I had planned on giving it to my dad, which I will now that I've read it for this episode. But here's the story. So on April 4th, 2013, a man was apprehended by game warden Terry Hughes when he was found stealing food from the walk-in freezer at Pine Tree Camp, which was located in Rome, Maine. This is kind of in the central Maine area. So this arrest of Christopher Knight ended a 27-year mystery of burglaries in the region. 27 years.
That's a streak.
Right? So during this period, he had lived alone in this makeshift camp in the woods and had only spoken a single word to another human. Now, this is funny to me because the one word is he was walking, happened to, like, really didn't interact with people. He was in literally the middle of the woods, but he was walking by hikers one day and he said, hi. One word in 27 years.
As we've all done on the trail.
Right? There are like reels about this. How like the awkward where you just go, hi.
He couldn't not. I get it.
He did it. So that was his one word that he spoke to another human in 27 years.
Wow.
So this man never lit a fire to stay warm in the sub-zero Maine winters because he figured a fire, the smoke, that's an easy way to get caught. We learned that in Lord of the Rings and like any survival camp ever.
Yeah.
Never had a fire. He never left a footprint. Like trackers could not find this man because he would hop from root to rock in order to journey from his camp to the homes that he was burglarizing.
Whoa.
Everything he ate, wore, and utilized at his camp was stolen. The only thing he owned was the glasses, the same glasses he wore when he parked his truck and walked into the woods 27 years prior.
Whoa.
Yeah. So he burglarized primarily the Pine Tree Camp. People had like really yucky feelings about this, and it's fair because this camp is for children and adults with disabilities, and this is where he would do most of his robberies. Also, it just was like they had a lot of supplies, so it was like a logistical thing for him. But he also would burglarize the surrounding cabins, and he mostly just took what he needed, but if we're being honest, he was taking some indulgences as well. So he took one child's entire stash of Halloween candy.
Oh.
Right? He had a big sweet tooth, so anytime he saw candy, he took it. He also loved to read. That is how he spent a lot of his time. Aside from reading, he said he just would think. He would just sit in nature and think about things. And I was like, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Reading and thinking. Yep. That's kind of two of my major hobbies. So Knight held himself to a questionable moral code, but a moral code nonetheless. He attempted not to steal anything that he seemed to think was of value, but he didn't really know like what might be valuable because he wouldn't take things that seemed like monetarily valuable, but as we know, like things can have sentimental value. So there were instances where he was just taking things that people really missed, but I mean, he took them. He was also pretty cognizant to try to not do any property damage. Like if he took a door off the hinges, he would put it back after he left. So it's kind of this like interesting dichotomy between like he was committing a crime, but like trying to do it as nicely as he could. So a lot of people obviously found these crimes to be bothersome, but many also kind of found them like harmless. And some cabin owners just like were like, okay, this is weird, but we just want it to stop. So I think one person left a note on the door being like, we'll buy you what you need, like just please stop like breaking into my home. But he didn't accept, and he just kept breaking into people's homes. Other people, understandably, found the crimes to be a lot more sinister. As the years passed, there was no camp found, no clues, no suspect. So this hermit became a thing of legend, right? People were just really second-guessing themselves. It had this eerie weight to it. The forests were feeling very haunted. People just felt like they were being watched. They wondered if maybe a neighbor had a dark side and they just didn't know about it. They wondered if there were like just some group of meddlesome kids who just were carrying on this tradition, but it was going on for 27 years. And so that is such a long time to not have a single clue. But people were just worried. Every time they left their cabin, they're just like, when I come back, like, will someone have broken into it? And it just took peace of mind away from a lot of people. Just one woman was just describing it as like feeling violated, like someone just kept coming into her space. And when you think about that it still has that home invasion aspect. Like nobody was home and he would make sure of that, but it still is at the back of your mind. Like that's just the fact that he could get into your home.
Yeah.
Is creepy enough. So after Knight's arrest, he revealed that he completed approximately 40 robberies a year for each of the 27 years that he lived in the woods. And although he reported that he had, no ill intent, after being captured, the residents of North Pond could certainly rest easier. And that's the end of our story.
Well, thank you for sharing that creepy piece of fiction and nonfiction with us as it gets darker and darker outside here. And Ashley, what are we talking about next week?
Sarah, I am so excited for next week's episode because sometimes friendship can be the darkest magic of all, or something. Next week, we are going to be talking about The Craft. We'll see you there.
Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. If you're a new listener, welcome to the Homebodies. And if you're back again for another slumber party, we're so glad to have you.
If you haven't already, please take a quick minute to leave us a review and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And also follow us on our haunted social channels. You can find us at Haunted Homebodies Pod. Until next time, and remember, when in doubt, just stay home.